The truth about how ancient people measured time without clocks. Once upon a time, people didn't know what an hour was. No alarms waking you up, no flashing phone screens, no ticking clocks. Imagine living your entire life without ever counting minutes, seeing someone without saying 5 p.m. or waking up without knowing what time it is. These days, it seems unattainable. However, this was the reality for thousands of years. However, ancient people were never late. Without clocks, they traversed oceans, established cities, carried out rites at specific times, and forecasted the seasons. How did they accomplish it then? How could they manage something they couldn't even see? Time it, something that never ends? The truth is nearly unbelievable, not simply unexpected. When time was just the sky, long before the first cities rose from the ground, before language was written, before numbers had meaning, humans didn't measure time, they experienced it. Life moved in a rhythm dictated entirely by nature. The rising sun wasn't just a daily event, it was a signal, a command to wake, to move, to survive. Morning meant opportunity to hunt, to gather, to explore. As the sun climbed higher, the world became brighter, warmer, and safer. But as it slowly sank toward the horizon, something shifted deep inside human instinct. Darkness wasn't peaceful back then, it was dangerous. Predators emerged, temperatures dropped, and visibility disappeared. So people didn't need clocks, because their bodies were already synchronized with the cycle of light and dark. Over time, humans began noticing patterns. Not just that the sun rises and sets, but how it moves across the sky in a predictable path. They realized that the day wasn't random, it had structure. Without writing anything down, without any tools, they started to understand that time was not chaos. It was a repeating cycle. And once that realization happened, everything changed. The first clock was a shadow. Somewhere in ancient history, a simple but powerful discovery was made: shadows move. Imagine a person standing in an open field, watching a stick planted in the ground. At sunrise, its shadow stretches long across the earth. As the sun rises higher, the shadow slowly shrinks, pulling closer to the base of the stick. By midday, it nearly disappears beneath it. Then, as the sun begins to fall, the shadow grows again, but now in the opposite direction. This wasn't random. It happened the same way, every single day. This observation might seem small, but it was revolutionary. Because for the first time, humans weren't just reacting to time, they were observing it, tracking it, and understanding it. By placing markers around the stick and noting where the shadow fell at different points in the day, they could divide daylight into sections. These weren't exact hours like today, but they were consistent enough to organize life. Work could begin when the shadow reached a certain point. Rituals could be timed, activities could be planned. But then came the problem that changed everything: night. How did they measure time at night? When the sun disappeared below the horizon, the shadow clock became useless. Darkness erased everything. No light meant any shadows, and without shadows, the day's only reliable clock was gone. But ancient people didn't stop measuring time when night fell. Instead, they looked up and discovered an entirely new system written across the sky. The stars weren't random lights. They moved slowly, predictably, almost like they were following a hidden schedule. Certain stars appeared at specific times, rose higher, then vanished as others took their place. Over generations, people began memorizing these patterns. The night sky became a map, not just for direction, but for time itself. In ancient Egypt, priests studied groups of stars known as decans, each one rising at a different interval throughout the night. Imagine standing under a vast, silent sky, using nothing but distant stars to understand time. No sound, no ticking, no numbers, just memory and observation. It required patience, focus, and deep knowledge passed down through generations. But even this system had flaws. Clouds could hide the stars, storms could erase the sky completely. And that meant one thing: humans needed a way to measure time that didn't depend on the heavens. The water clock: time that flows. In the search for something more reliable, ancient civilizations turned to an unlikely element. Water flows slowly and consistently, and that made it perfect for tracking time. This led to the invention of the water clock, also known as the clepsydra. At first glance, it was simple: a container filled with water, with a small hole that allowed it to drip out at a steady rate. But behind that simplicity was something incredible: controlled, measurable time. As the water level dropped, it marked the passing of time. Lines inside the container indicated different intervals, allowing people to track how much time had passed without needing the sun or stars. This meant time could now be measured indoors, at night, during bad weather, any time. It was a huge leap forward. Water clocks were used in courts to limit speeches, ensuring fairness. They were used in temples to time rituals with precision. They became tools of order and control. For the first time, time was not just observed, it was managed. But even water had its limits. It could freeze, evaporate, or flow unevenly depending on conditions. So once again, humans searched for another method. And this time, they turned to fire. Time measured by fire. Fire, like water, changes in a predictable way it consumes. Ancient people realized that if something burns at a steady rate, it can measure time just as effectively as flowing water. This led to the use of candles, oil lamps, and incense as timekeeping tools. In parts of Asia, incense sticks were crafted specifically to burn at consistent speeds. As the fragrance filled the air, time passed silently alongside it. It wasn't just visual, it became sensory. You could smell time moving. There's something almost poetic about that. Time wasn't a number on a screen. It was something you experienced. The flicker of a flame, the scent of incense, the quiet transformation of matter into ash. It made time feel alive, tangible, and real. But even with shadow clocks, stars, water, and fire, one challenge remained: consistency, the big secret. Here's the truth that most people never realize. Ancient timekeeping was never perfectly precise. There were no seconds, no milliseconds, and no exact synchronization. Everything was based on observation, estimation, and natural cycles. And yet, their world didn't collapse. In fact, it thrived. They built massive structures aligned perfectly with celestial events. They created calendars that tracked seasons with incredible accuracy. They navigated vast oceans using nothing but the sky, which leads to a strange and uncomfortable thought. Today we measure every second. We chase time, schedule it, optimize it, and fear wasting it. But ancient humans lived without that pressure. They weren't controlled by time. They lived with it. Time was never just numbers. It was a way of living we slowly forgot. Ancient people didn't chase time, they moved with it, and maybe that's what we lost. If this made you see time differently, you already understand the truth hidden in plain sight. Like this video if it changed your perspective, and subscribe for more untold mysteries, because the next truth might change the way you see reality itself.